suppose Grant, since it was your idea, we'll start with the Chiefs. Now, is Pat Mahomes, is he going to be a cap casualty at all, or do you think they bring him back? It's the burning question in Kansas City right now.
I kind of hope they let him go. I mean, he's taking up $45 million in cap space. It's
Because his contract kicks in this year, this
I
year,
think it
doesn't
was
it?
last year. Yeah, because
Okay.
last year was his sixth season. So the start of the 2022 regular season, game one in State Farm Stadium was the first year of his new deal. So this will be year two in the new contract. So if you're wondering, they have a quarterback paid and locked up for the next 10 years, which is nice because every other team is in the NFL, Philadelphia, Los Angeles Chargers, and the Cincinnati Bengals, and maybe the Baltimore Ravens if the Ravens want to pay Lamar Jackson, or if Lamar Jackson thinks he's worth a fully guaranteed contract, they're going to have to pay their quarterbacks. But Kansas City has theirs locked in already, and the salary cap is only going to go up each year with the new TV deal coming. So that's nice in that aspect. Um, but to your point, like I said, I'll start, and as we say this, guys, this is before the franchise tag deadline. So everything we say right now is us being hypothetical, thinking, hey, this guy, if he were to hit the open market, or if a team were to tag him, but that could change because I could say this about someone, and then guess what? In 10 days, his team says, hey, tag, you're not going anywhere. But I will start this discussion with the franchise tag. And I think number one thing for the Chiefs in the offseason is Mr. Orlando Brown Jr.
Ooh, I'm intrigued because I feel like that really he is someone that really divides the Chiefs fan base. There's 50% that want him back. There's 50% that said get him the hell out of here. He's worthless. He's not good. We can do better. Where do you stand on that? Or do you think he's a franchise tag possibility,
I think,
or do you want him
no, I,
gone?
I, I want to keep him. We're
Okay.
keeping him. This is Orlando Brown Jr. Stan account. I think since his time in Kansas City in 2021, I think he's only given up like a total of 6 sacks in 2 seasons. And that includes the goose egg that he helped put up, in the Super Bowl this year, and also the fact that the Chiefs, they gave up a first round pick for him from Baltimore before the 2021 season, and him and Joe Tooney have some good chemistry going for him. I would like for Orlando to maybe lose a little weight because he does have a problem with the speed rush, where sometimes if some guys get a good get off, they're just going to blow right past him. So maybe trim down a little bit so you can handle that speed rush there. But left tackle, right tackle, it doesn't matter anymore. If you have someone who can help protect and keep your quarterback upright, and a player who I think only gave up 2 pressures in the Super Bowl this year on 38, pass blocking attempts. You got to keep Orlando Brown Jr. around, and he's only 26 years old. He's young, and let's not forget he got in the building and he told Andy Reid to draft Creed Humphrey because they played together at Oklahoma that year in 2017. Lincoln Riley's best year at Oklahoma, which was Bob Stoops' team. But when you're part of an offensive line like that, I think you got to keep Orlando. So do everything you can to try to get a deal done with him. And if you can't, tag, you're it. But guess what? We're going to negotiate this long-term deal until July 15th, whenever that deadline is. Um,
I
yeah,
think
and
so.
so I'm doing everything in my power I can to lock Orlando Brown Jr. up.
Okay. Because I believe Andrew Wiley is also a
Yes,
free agent as
yes,
well.
sir.
Do you think they're going to be able to work out a deal with him, or do you
So
think that's something where they can go the draft or free agency
I think
route?
they might go draft or free agency on that, but also, in my opinion, I think they have a couple players on this roster who they like and they think they can fill in that void. And the reason why I think you let Andrew go is then you can allocate more of that money to Orlando. They drafted Darius Kennard this past April, a right tackle out of Kentucky. He played left tackle for the Wildcats. He's a fifth-round pick. They really like him. And then a player they really like, who was the original starting tackle in 2021 before he got hurt, is Georges Niang. He's a a big 6'6" tackle out of TCU. He was actually drafted in 2020, but he didn't play in the NFL that year with COVID because he does have a bad case of asthma, and he was worried, for his health and well-being there. But when he's been healthy, he's been the guy at right tackle that they really like. So I think you let Andrew go because there will be a team. Who knows? Maybe a team like the Chicago Bears, who needs offensive line help, or even in San Francisco, if Mike McGlinchey is if he goes somewhere else, the Niners, they say, you know what, let's get a proven guy in the NFL and Andrew Wiley. So I think the Chiefs let Wiley go so you can allocate more of that money towards Orlando Brown Jr. because they got a couple guys on their roster they like already that can fill in at right tackle. And then you bring back essentially the same offensive line 3 years in a row and a team that gave up a goose egg in terms of sacks in the Super Bowl.
That was because of the field, though. It wasn't talent.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I saw slip a couple of times, but then, he only fell because Andrew threw his ass into the dirt. And wonder, have we found the Eagles' defensive line yet, or is Phoenix
Still
still
missing. Still missing.
Okay.
Have not found them yet. Have not spotted them. But outside of Orlando Brown and Wiley are the two other ones, but they lose a handful of free agents that are handful of receivers that are free agents this year. Juju only signed a 1 year deal. Mecole Hardman is at the end of his rookie deal. Justin Watson's a free agent. So where do you think they stand with that? Do you think they're able to work out some long-term deals with any of those three? I think if you have to pick one, I think they try to re-sign Mecole Hardman, who's been there and had success. His biggest downfall has been injuries, can't stay healthy, but when he's been on the field, he's been productive and he's been one of Mahomes' favorite targets, especially this year since Tyreek Hill was gone. He was kind of that speed burn the field
And a
guy.
big guy in the red zone. But actually, I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. Personally, I think I would have agreed keep McCole, but who was the game changer in the Super Bowl this year? Who did they trade for midseason? Kadarius Toney. And they drafted Sky Moore, and then also just to maybe allocate some of this money somewhere else. I think they're going to let McCole walk and go somewhere else and get his opportunity on a 1 year deal like Juju got. And I think they're gonna re-sign Juju. I think it's not going to be
Okay.
crazy. I think it might be like a 3 year deal, kind of like what MVS got this offseason. They're going to bring him.
And he's also, I heard too, that's a potential cap casualty was
Okay.
MVS.
I did not know that he was a
Because I think if they cut him, I think they would be saving about 11 million
that
in cap space,
he was a
which would it would help sign Orlando
mm-hmm.
Brown.
And then maybe if you do that, then maybe you can talk with McCole and bring him back. Because MVS signed that 3 year deal going into last season. But well, I'm just going to play the game that I know as of right now and say MVS will be on the team because the Chiefs have over $25 million in cap space. They're not like the New Orleans Saints or the Vikings who are in a spot where it's like, oh shoot, we have no money, we can't do this. So I think, kind of back to the receivers, I think they're going to let McCole walk because he'll want to get an opportunity somewhere else, and I think they're going to bring Juju back because he was big in the Super Bowl this year, and when they needed him against Tennessee, he was big. And him and Patrick, they kind of got a nice little chemistry going. And he's the possession receiver this offense needs. You got a young fast guy in Sky Moore in the slot, Kadarius Toney, and then something tells me they might be able to get a veterans minimum with Justin Watson to bring him back on like a 1 year deal. So with the receiver room, I think McCole walks. You re-sign Juju, you keep MVS, you still have Travis, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Justin Watson, and let's not forget in this receiver room, Dylan, they had Justin Ross, from Clemson as an undrafted rookie. He broke his foot in training camp last year. He's going to come back. So there's a possible speedster they have at their arsenal. He would have been a first round pick had it not been for that weird, neck surgery and neck injury he had at Clemson. So he's a player to keep an eye on too. And if he can stay healthy, because I read last year he was impressing people in training camp a lot. So they're
Yeah, and I know when we had the when we were kind of recapping the draft, we talked about like some undrafted guys, and I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast, but I know you and I were texting back and forth like, of course he goes to the Chiefs, and he was the best receiver on those Clemson
Yep.
teams when he was there. I think he was part of Trevor Lawrence's recruiting class, and it's unfortunate because the guy just could never stay on the field.
Yep. Exactly.
And unfortunately, it's come up again in the NFL. But who knows? Maybe this year he finds a way to stay on the field, and he's another weapon for Pat Mahomes, and just tortures the NFL and the rest of us.
Yep. And then kind of something along those lines. We'll switch now for me to the defensive side of the football. A free agent, he's a 4-year safety who started a lot of games this year. I think who they're going to let him walk is Juan Thornhill. And I say that because, when we recap the draft, I mentioned this player here, Brian Cook, that safety from Cincinnati. He had some downs this year, but, boy, did he have some ups. And he showed some real potential to be a really good player in this league, and he played a lot in the playoffs. I think he can slide in and be your strong safety next to Justin Reed. And then also, guess what? You let Juan walk. You have another guy on a rookie deal. Second round pick, not a whole lot on your cap space. That gives you more flexibility to, sign some of these veterans. Orlando Brown, if you want to rework MVS's deal, maybe bring McColl back with that. So I think in that secondary, you let Juan go. He's 2-time Super Bowl champion. Let him go somewhere else, get his flowers, be a starter, and you have Brian Cook be a safety there. And I think that's going to happen because Brett Veach drafted Cook in the second round for a reason. For these decisions here. And then another move on the defensive side of the ball is getting someone else on the interior next to Chris Jones. A big body guy you can have on first and second down. They're 2 Super Bowl runs. They've brought in guys late in the year, and they've been big. But if you could have someone there consistently all year to kind of protect Chris Jones and anchor your middle of your defense, because if you're looking at the middle of this defense, you got Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, and Leo Chanel, that rookie from Wisconsin, played really well last year. Towards the end of the year, you bring back, Frank Clark, George Karlaftis. This was the eighth ranked rush defense in the NFL last year. And look what they did to Miles Sanders in the Super Bowl. The Bengals, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine in the AFC Championship game, Josh Jacobs in the last game of the regular season. The rush defense wasn't an issue for this team. But if you could bring in a big body in the middle who can stop the run, that only, helps your defense out, so much more. So, and then it just also helps protect your young linebackers so they can make more plays. And then another side on the defensive ball, this is just maybe paying someone in the future, is working on a contract extension for L'Jarius Sneed. How great was he? This year I think he had 4 or 5 sacks, almost led the team in forced fumbles. He can play the slot. He can play the outside corner. He's just a Swiss Army knife. He's so versatile. He's coming into year 4 on his rookie deal, and they got to try to work on, locking him down. Because if he has another year like he did this year, next season, he's going to be one of the highest paid corners in the NFL just because he can do so much. And then lastly,
Yeah.
this is just me wishing here, they can bring back Jet McKinnon.
I was
You
I
know,
was gonna ask about him is because I know it sounds like they aren't picking up Edwards-Helaire's 5th-year contract. I wouldn't be surprised if they just cut him either because
yeah,
he hasn't been very good and he hasn't been healthy. And with Pacheco and Jet McKinnon in the backfield, that's a solid running
mm-hmm.
core. And Andy Reid doesn't like running the ball, but with those two, they're effective running the ball. They can get 5-6 yards a
Yep.
pop and make the safeties come up a little bit to respect where they have to honor them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when they've gotten those guys involved in the running game this year, when they've rushed for over 30 times a game or over 120 yards, they were undefeated. And then what Jet does in the passing game, not only catching balls but also being Pat's personal protector. You see a blitzing linebacker, he's not afraid to put his helmet right in between his teeth and knock him on his ass. And then with just how violent Pacheco runs and how hard he runs, it kind of gives this team an edge. For some reason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire just doesn't have it. He doesn't run with that power. He did once this year in Tampa Bay, and look how great that turned out. But he doesn't have it in him for some reason to do it through a whole season. So who knows? They might try to find a trade partner for him and get like a 5th-round pick in return, or a 6th that'll turn into a conditional 5th based on stuff. He could be an August trade. So bring back Jet McKinnon on offense, and it should be good to go.
Yeah. And I think I lost my train. Oh, what do you want him to do with Carlos Dunlap? Do you think he is he's playing in a different uniform next year?
I think so. I think this was a just kind of a 1-year deal. Hey, let's bring in a veteran to help rush the passer when Frank Clark, was suspended for those couple games with his gun charge. And that's another thing I wouldn't mind if they did is um, add help on the defensive line, because like I said, Dylan, the secondary, they're set. They're bringing everyone back. Those three linebackers, and then also Harris, number 47, they're set. But I would like it if they would add a veteran in the middle, because as you know, defensive line is one of the hardest positions to play in the NFL. Sign a veteran who can play inside next to Chris Jones, because he is a man. He's going to be at least 26 years old. He's got that man strength. He knows what it's like to play. There's not as much of an adjustment period in the middle. And then in the first round, if they could, maybe draft a defensive end, an edge rusher. Because, Frank Clark's coming into the last year of his contract. Karlaftis had a good end of the year as a rookie. But, can he step up in a year two? So maybe in the draft, if they could get a young edge rusher, I would like that a lot.
Okay. And then what do you how do you think the Chiefs are going to be able to handle losing Bieniemy as the OC? And
I think as an offense as a whole, I think they're going to be fine. One thing that'll be interesting to see is check that running back room out, because he's been the running backs coach for the last 10 years, and how many good running backs have they had come up when their starters have been hurt? Jamal Charles tears an ACL. You have Travarius Ward, Spencer Ware from LSU, Damian Williams, Jet McKinnon has a second life in Kansas City. Isaiah Pacheco, a 7th-round rookie, comes up. These are good running backs who had a nice career in Kansas City. So I'll be intrigued to see how that running back room is affected now that Eric is gone, because he's not working with him on a daily basis. But in terms of the offense as a whole, when you have Andy, designing plays, and then Matt Nagy just having, I think, an understanding of an NFL offense. Who knows? His time in Chicago may have worked had he not had Mitch Trubisky throwing him the ball. I mean, if he had a different quarterback, maybe a lot of those plays work, or this Bears offense is able to get going. So I think they'll be fine there. And they bring back same tight ends coach, same offensive line coach, and the offensive line coach kind of helps design some run plays when they do decide to run it. So as a whole on the offense, I'm feeling good. But that running back room will be interesting to see how they play next year with a new voice in there for the first time in 10 years.